I am so excited to talk to Meghan Lim today. Meghan thought that everything was going great for her with her super fun, successful job as a financial analyst. But then she got laid off. So now what? Meghan had student loans and a car payment and a small emergency fund to help her get through the hump. That's when Meghan found investing and her financial journey started. She's on track to hit a $100,000 net worth by the age of 27, and I cannot wait for you to hear how she did it and how you can take tips from her journey to apply it to yours. Meghan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Mindy, for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. So I already gave away that you got laid off. I have been laid off. That is like the worst thing in the world. Your boss calls you in and you're like, oh, what's HR doing here? Oh, great. What were your finances like before that point?
Yeah, so I would say my finances were pretty okay. Mind you, this was like my third time losing a job. So at that point, like it kept happening and it felt like it was something I kind of had to get used to. But for the most part, ever since I graduated college, I always made it a point for me to be on top of my finances. So for me, that's living frugally, living below my means, which is like living with roommates, doing a side hustle on top of my job. And at the time, it was pet sitting. So I always made sure to make sure I was financially okay because I knew that me losing a job for the third time meant that I had to have something as a backup. And thankfully, my pet sitting side hustle was able to help me through those tough times.
I think it's really interesting. You're a financial analyst, which is a job that I'm assuming pays well, and yet you're doing a side hustle. And I really love that. When did you discover the concept of financial independence?
I would say I discovered it probably in college, my sophomore year. I would watch YouTube videos. My favorite YouTuber is Graham Stephan, so I learned a lot of personal finance through him. And that's when I learned that, financial independence is not an age, it's a number. And for me, like, I personally don't think I need a lot of money to live out my lifestyle. I think for me, at least, like, I could probably live off of like 1.5 million or 2 million, whatever that number may be. But I've also learned that with financial independence, as long as I'm passionate in any work that I'm doing, I don't see myself like I would love to retire early someday, but at the same time, I don't want to be bored and I still want to keep continuing to do things on the side. So that could be like barista fire, where maybe I'm doing a part-time job, but I'm coasting and I don't have to worry about money as much. So that's kind of like what I learned about financial independence.
Okay, you just said two things that I want to highlight. First, you said, I don't need a lot of money to live out my lifestyle. And that is really the key here to financial independence is when you keep your expenses low, your nest egg doesn't need to be so high. Your FI number doesn't need to be so high, which means you don't have to work as long. So back when you were working as a financial analyst, what was your salary?
It was $62,400.
Okay. And what part of the world were you living in? Would you categorize it as a high, medium, or low cost of living area?
Yeah. So I was in Charlotte, and I would say it's medium. It is definitely getting more expensive now, but for the most part, it's a lot cheaper than most cities.
And that's a really great point that I want to make and highlight back to this. I don't need a lot of money to live out my lifestyle. If you lived in New York City or Singapore or London or wherever you wanted to set down roots, you would need a lot more money to fund your lifestyle simply because it's more expensive to be there. What is your investing philosophy?
My investing philosophy is to make it simple and easy and always prioritizing the accounts that benefit you. So for me, that would be opening up a Roth IRA and contributing to that. And for me, that's majority of my money is in index funds like the S&P 500. I do have a few stocks here and there, but I think at least more than half of my portfolio is in the S&P 500. And it's just easy and simple because on average, it returns 10% each year. So I always make it a priority for myself to maximize my Roth IRA just because by the time you're 59 and a half and, you're ready to withdraw that money, you don't have to pay any taxes on it. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I think like not a lot of people know about it. And I want to kind of spread awareness to people and show them that this is something that should be opened by everyone and definitely used to its potential just because of that great tax benefit.
Whenever I'm talking to someone who is younger, I always push the Roth IRA if at all possible, because the more you can get in at an earlier age, the longer you have for it to grow tax-free. When I introduced you, I said that you did have student loans. Were you investing while you had student loans, or did you wait to pay off all your debt before you started investing?
So at first, I thought I had to pay my student loans first, and I thought like that was the strategy. So I was putting about $1,000 a month into my student loans. But after just becoming more financially literate and learning about interest rates, like my student loans are only at a 3.8%, and I only have about like $13,000 left. I decided that it would be more beneficial to invest while still paying the minimum on my student loans, just because the return and the market is much more, and I can time is more valuable than money, and because I'm young, I need to take advantage of that time. So being able to make it a priority to set aside money to invest every month while also paying down my student loans will benefit me better in the long run. So that's been my strategy, and I think like that is something that maybe not many people know about. I think like when it comes to student loans, a lot of people are just paying their loan, but probably not investing. So I do want to tell everyone, like if they do have student loans, to definitely prioritize investing, because if you're not investing and you're just paying the loan, then it's not really going to work out in your favor.
I love that you're thinking about interest rates. So this is something that comes up. It's a big debate in the FI community and like anywhere, really. Should I pay off my insert low interest rate loan title here, or should I invest? And you can do both. Or think about this. She could put this money into the 3% student loans, which means she's getting a 3% return. Or she could put it into the stock market, which has historically yielded much higher than 3% returns. So this is what I do with my mortgage payment. Technically, I have debt. It's my mortgage, and I choose to keep that debt. I make the minimum payment every single month because I can get more money, or I can get more returns in the stock market than I can paying off my mortgage.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. I also had a car payment, and like at the time when I bought my car, it was when car prices were super high, and my car interest rate was, I think, like 6.4%. And I guess technically I probably could have had a better return in the market, but because my car is a depreciating asset and that was giving me anxiety and I hated seeing that monthly payment out the door, I just went ahead and prioritized paying that one off as much as I could, but I was still investing at the same time. But because it was like at 6.4%, for me, that was uncomfortable. So I decided to just pay that. But my student loan's only at 3.8. I mean, even high yield savings accounts are returning more than that. And that's like guaranteed interest.
That is a really great point. So to the people who are listening, and I have suggested this before, if you are watching this video and you're like, but I don't want to have all this debt, what you could do is make your minimum payment to whatever your debt is, and then put the additional money that you normally would have put into there. Another bonus for this is you're actually making more money by putting it in the high yield savings account than paying off your mortgage. And then you have access to it should something catastrophic happen. So you've got this money in this account. When it equals the balance that your mortgage is, you can choose to pay it off. You can decide to keep it as is and continue making your mortgage payments. I mean, there's so many more options when you just have this big pile of cash sitting around. What a profound statement. There's so many more options when you have this big pile of cash sitting around.
Exactly. And I think like as long as everyone is educated on the numbers, I mean, it also, like you said, it goes down to your preference. Some people do have that anxiety where they just don't like holding on to debt. And I would say like I had that at one point, but just learning to realize how important it is to invest, especially while you're young. I think like not even counting the 10% annual return from the S&P 500, but even just being in your 20s and choosing to invest that money instead of paying your student loan right away, that itself like has a much bigger return than 10% just because of the compound interest in time. So I think if you even take that into account, you'll start to realize, like maybe not now, but later on, how much of a difference it'll make if you really prioritize investing as soon as possible.
Yeah, I love that. Prioritize investing as soon as possible. And investing doesn't have to be $1,000 a week. It can be a very small amount of money every week. Getting in the habit of investing is so much more important than the amount that you're doing in the beginning. Because once you're in the habit, then all of a sudden you get a windfall or a tax return, or you get a bonus at work, or you get a raise. That makes it a lot easier to just, now I can bump up my investing a little bit. And your lifestyle doesn't change.
Exactly.
Let's talk about savings rates. What was your savings rate while you were working?
So, it's funny. This is like, I guess, one of my financial mistakes. I didn't prioritize my emergency fund as much as I should have. Like, I was actually prioritizing investing more than saving for emergencies. So at the time, I maybe had like, I don't know, 2,000 to 3,000 in savings, and then the rest, like, I would try to invest as much as possible. But then I learned my mistake after my car broke down and I needed to pay a large sum of money to fix it. That's when I ended up financing a car. So you learn from your mistakes. And so now I try to, now I have a 6-month emergency fund, thankfully. And my savings rate, it really just depends on my goals. Like right now, like I would one day hopefully become a homeowner. I don't know about today's market, but I do try to save at least 50% of my income. And then, so when I say 50% of my income, half of that will go to investing and then half of that will go to savings.
And that's great. That's great.
Yes.
And I consider a savings rate to be everything that you're not spending on stuff.
Yeah.
So again, back to that $100,000 salary, if you are spending 50 and then you are putting 25 in a savings account and 25 in the stock market, that's still a 50% savings rate. It isn't just what's going into your savings account. In my opinion, if you have a different idea of savings accounts, leave a message below. You're making $50,000 from side hustles. What are you spending?
What am I spending? That's a good question. So right now I am traveling. I've been just doing content. I will probably pick up a job maybe later on just because I want another stream of income. But right now I'm focusing on content. So I'm spending minimally because I'm in Japan and because the yen is like very weak. That was my strategy because the US is having so much inflation. I decided to use my credit card points to book a flight to Japan. And so my living expenses have been a lot lower. Like food is very cheap and transportation, I don't have to drive. Like the train, for example, is about $1 to $2 to get from one point to another. So as of right now, my living expenses are probably like less than $2,000 a month.
Wow, that's awesome. When you go back to work, are you going to get another financial analyst job or are you looking at different opportunities?
I think I'm kind of looking at both. So I do have experience as a financial analyst, but I'm also open to other opportunities, maybe alongside marketing or content creation. I'm definitely open to anything. And I'm realizing with all this free time, and I would love to add that as my main income stream. And also, I think I want to max out my 401k and kind of use my side hustles to fund my lifestyle.
How old are you right now?
I'm 26.
26. And how close are you to that 100K?
I'm about $20,000 away.
Oh, okay. So looking into my crystal ball, I predict that you will make it.
Thank you.
I need to get a crystal ball as a prop. Look at this. You're going to make it. Frankly, I consider you having met your goal if it happens by the day before you turn 28. So you have more than a year to save up another $20,000. And you've got side hustles and you've got like practically no living expenses. And you're going to do it. Let's look at Dave Ramsey's baby steps. He's got 7. And number 1 is save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. And I think he recently added the word starter. Although I don't go in here all the time. If he didn't, sorry, I made the mistake. And then step 2 is pay off all debt, except the house. And then step 3 is save 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So if we were doing Meghan's baby steps instead of Dave Ramsey's, Do you agree with these first three? I mean, I don't think you agree with number two, but save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. What do you think of that?
I honestly disagree. I feel like that advice is outdated, especially with the state of our economy and the cost of living. I think $1,000 is not enough. Like, even to fix something with your car can cost more than $1,000. So I definitely think like it all depends on the person and their situation. I think having 3 to 6 months makes more sense just because that is like your living expense, and $1,000 cannot even cover like someone's rent, for example. Like, I know the average cost of a 1-bedroom is probably $1,500, you know? So $1,000 is definitely not enough. But again, it depends on like your living expenses. If you have low living expenses, whatever that is, times 3, I think is the bare minimum that you should have. So whatever you're paying for housing, transportation, and food, each month times 3 is, I think, a great starter for everyone.
I really like what you said at the beginning of this. It depends on the person and their situation. Let's say you have a super reliable car. Maybe you don't need so much in your emergency fund for your car expenses, but you still need food. You still need to pay for your housing in whatever way that you have. Again, depends on the person and their situation. If you just graduated college and you went back and moved home with mom and dad and they're not charging you rent, now your housing expenses are a little different, and maybe you have access to one of their cars if your car breaks down. So I like that a lot. So if you are in debt and wanting to pay it off, or you're just starting on your financial journey, maybe you just discovered financial independence, look at your specific situation and see how much you would need. I like that he's getting people even starting thinking about having an emergency fund, but I do agree with you. I think it's a little low. We're skipping step 2, pay off all your debt. We've already discussed that. That's not our plan. We're going to start investing instead. Save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. So again, I think 3 can be a little low. There are people who lost their jobs in that great big tech layoff boom. What was that, like 18 months ago, that still don't have a job. 3 to 6 months isn't going to do much for them. I mean, it's going to get you 3 to 6 months, but I would look at your specific situation, just like Meghan said, and also focus on how easy would it be for you to get another job. There are jobs that are really easy to replace. There are jobs that are a little more difficult to replace. If you have a more difficult to replace job, have more of an emergency fund. Have more options available before you start paying down all of your debt. And step 6 is pay off your home early. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, that's actually why I started prioritizing my student loan first, because I did watch some of his videos and some of it got to me about having to pay off your debt first. And so that's why I tried to pay my student loans as fast as possible, until I later realized it would be better to pay the minimum and invest. And on top of having an emergency fund, I think one thing that isn't talked about enough is I think everyone should have a side hustle, because even if you lose your job, it would be nice to have another income stream to help you alongside that. Because for me, being laid off 3 times, I don't think I would not have been able to survive if I didn't start pet sitting and dog walking, because that side hustle itself has saved me through these times. And I think it's so important for everyone to diversify their income streams.
All right. I think that was going to answer what I was just going to ask you. What advice would you give somebody looking to pursue financial independence? But I think that's a really great one. Meghan, thank you so much for your time today. This was super fun talking to you. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Meghan Makes Money. I am primarily more on Instagram, but those are the 2 platforms where I post a lot of finance content. So yeah, if you want to give me a follow, I would much appreciate that.
And that's Meghan Makes Money, MEGHAN Makes Money. All right, if you like this video, please click the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more inspiring fire stories just like Meghan's. This is Mindy Jensen signing off.